Welcome to the Egg Whisperer Show, a program exclusively designed to promote reproductive health awareness and discuss fertility preservation options. Here is your host, the Harvard-educated fertility specialist, Dr. Amy.
She's known as the Egg Whisperer.
Fertility expert Dr. Amy Avazadeh.
And you have yet another success story
Just launched by an East Bay fertility doctor.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Egg Whisperer Show, and tonight's episode is titled, How to Pick the Right Sperm. And who better to have on tonight's show than the General Supervisor from the Seattle Sperm Bank, Angelo Allard. Hi Angelo, thanks for being here tonight, I so appreciate it.
Hi Dr. Amy, it's a pleasure to be here.
We're going to have a blast tonight because what you don't know is I've been basically collecting emailed questions from all over the world for the past week. And some of the questions are pretty bizarre. I haven't sent any of them to you because I didn't want you to cancel on me last minute. So I just want you to be prepared. But before I get into the questions, I want to know, how did you get into the sperm business?
Sure. So, coming out of college, I got a job doing diabetes research. And after doing 6-7 days a week, 12-hour days of research, I decided the research life just wasn't for me anymore. Mm-hmm. And saw a posting for a sperm bank, and I thought, this is too funny. I have got to check this out. And applied. Actually, when I first came to Seattle Sperm Bank, was just a lab tech here. Yeah. And about a year and a half into it, they gave me the opportunity to run operations and compliance.
Yeah. So I think you have to have a pretty good sense of humor to be in the sperm business and really have to love what you do.
Yeah, I would say it is, if not the most important, probably right up there on the resume portfolio requirement for being working at a sperm bank.
Right. And what does it mean to be a general supervisor? So can you just describe a day in the life of Angelo at Seattle Sperm Bank? Talk to me.
Well, we interact with over 40 countries all around the world. So I'm getting emails, voice messages, offline chat messages all through the night. I usually leave the office around 4:30 local time, but from 4:30 until I get here about 7 a.m. every morning, it's just a compiling of emails, calls, voicemails, etc. That as soon as I sit at my desk in the morning, it's correspondence.
Got it.
And after correspondence, when the rest of my staff starts arriving, it's delegation and duties for the day. Yeah. And then compliance is about 50% of what I do. So all tissue banks are governed by the FDA here in the U.S. And so it's donor eligibility determination and reviewing risk assessment forms and blood test results. Right. And I usually end my day with special projects that need to get done as we look to continue to improve our donor program.
So basically, you make sure that you're sending out sparkling sperm to 40 countries.
Sparkling, yes.
Sparkling
absolutely.
Clean.
I'm the ultimate sparkling swim coach.
That is awesome. But 40 countries, 40?
Yeah, over about 44 at last. We just did an audit of distribution about a month ago, and it was 44 countries that we sent our donor specimens to.
So when I hear that, what I'm thinking is basically if one of my families here in San Ramon uses one of the vials, that potentially there could be a half sibling in another country.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
One really cool thing that I love about your bank is how you can connect families with donor siblings. So tell me about that program that you guys have.
Yeah, so we started our own in-house sibling registry. We named it SSB Connect, so Seattle Sperm Bank Connects. And any time that a recipient anywhere in the world reports a birth with us, they then have the opportunity to gain access and a login to our in-house sibling registry that would then place them into the donor group that they were a recipient of. So if you were use donor 9999, then you reported a birth for 9999, then you could be in the group for 9999.
Yeah. And do these people hang out together, share pictures? Have there been group meetups? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, actually, every year for the past 3 years, we have hosted an annual picnic where our owner and a few of our staff here get together and send invites out to recipients who have used our donor specimens, and they come to an annual picnic where they're not just meeting half siblings, they're meeting other children that have been used by other donors that they themselves didn't use. But they use SSB Connects and the annual picnic as an opportunity to learn about these things.
Yeah, that's really good for families. So I'm really glad that you guys do that. I mean, there's so many reasons why I like Sperm Bank. You know, anytime, or Seattle Sperm Bank, anytime a patient comes to me and they're looking for donor vials, I always say, well, you have to look at Seattle Sperm Bank just because they're so nice and they clearly love what they do and they're really, really good at it. And I think customer service is so important. When you're going through something like a fertility struggle or you're trying to find the right sperm donor, when you pick up the phone, you want someone on the other end of the line to be really friendly and willing to help you. And I just want to say thank you for just being so kind and wonderful to all my patients over all these years. How long has Seattle Sperm Bank been around? Tell me a little bit about the history of the Sperm Bank.
Yeah, so we opened doors in 2008. And, we began collecting donor specimens, had to wait, well into 2009 until we had specimens released from quarantine and ready for purchase and distribution. Mm-hmm. And when we first began, most of our distribution was actually international. The domestic market share was really well captured by other sperm banks in the U.S., and so we used the opportunity to gain some revenue and some growth by shipping specimens internationally. And as we had more resources, then we began investing into the domestic market share. And we're really happy to see now that we have been able to distribute to over 600 clinics here in the U.S.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. And most of your donors, I'm assuming, they live in the Seattle area.
Well, yeah. So our main location when we opened in 2008 was here in Seattle, and in late 2015 we opened a satellite donor collection facility in Tempe, Arizona.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The only places where the donors are collected at this point are either in Seattle while they're in the program or in Tempe while they're in the program.
Nice. Oh, I didn't know that. And so how do you recruit donors? How do you find donors for your sperm bank?
The university ads are the number one. So, advertising on the university newspaper or online periodical or classifieds, that's number one. Right. About 60% of the population is a student, either undergraduate, graduate, physician, etc. Yeah. And other recruiting efforts are, paid Facebook ads, paid Google ads, the light rail, the tram.
And it must be, maybe where I'm on Facebook that I don't see these ads, but what does an ad say? I'm just curious. Like, do you love yourself and think you're the awesomest genetic specimen ever and want to donate sperm? How do you recruit the donors? Spread
your genes everywhere around the world, like Genghis Khan. Yeah, right. No, it's a paid Google ad or a paid Facebook ad would be something along the lines of our mission statement, how we want to help.
Right.
Families all around the world have happy, healthy children.
So true.
And do you want to be a part of it?
Right. Oh, that's so awesome. And then how much does a donor get paid typically? I mean, that's honestly like one of the most common questions that people ask me.
Sure. So, there's different restrictions based on compensation for all around the world, but in the U.S., the donors are going to make around $70 to $100 per donation.
Okay. And then how often can a guy even come in to donate?
Every 48 hours if their quality allows for it. The sperm cells will be ready and provide quality specimens for some guys every 48 hours, and for other guys it's every 72 to 96.
Nice. And then what is that quality threshold? Like, what does it take to be a sperm donor from a count standpoint?
The first bottleneck, the first filter that the potential donors applicants go through is just initial semen analysis.
Got it.
And how potent is the specimen itself? And 90% of the potential donor applicants at that point are screened out. Wow. It's just only 10% of the guys that even come through the door have enough sperm cells, a high enough concentration of motility to go through our washing process, freezing process, thawing process, and survive to the point where it'd be ready for distribution.
Nice. And then I'm assuming it's not just that, it's also they have to go through the psych evaluation, they have to do a genetic screen, there's more to it.
Yeah, so like I said, 90% of the guys are gone right away. Right. So of the 10% that are left, we then begin screening for family medical history, psych evaluation, genetic testing, physical exam, infectious disease screening. They meet with a master's in social work and get counseled so that they fully understand the implications of being a donor and what it means that you could be contacted 18 years later. The amount of screening these guys go through, I wouldn't put myself through it, but it's a lot.
And you guys have a pretty good relationship with your donors. So if people have questions for them down the road, like I just sent you a question the other day, you actually said to me, let me ask him and I'll get back to you. So I think that's really a special connection. If you treat people well, your donors, they're going to be willing to still be contacted. And if you ever have questions, you can reach out to them.
Well, and to us, the donors are as important, or if not more important, than our clients, because our donors just aren't the product. They are, they're the lifeline. They're the heart of this business.
Right. So I just want to go to my questions now, and I want to start off with a question about what I'll call the sperm alphabet soup. You know, you hear all these names thrown out: IUI, ART, ICI, washed, unwashed. I mean, can you break that down for me? What does that all mean?
Yeah, so, our nomenclature that we've chosen to use, like for IUI, ICI, IUI, ART, etc., the nomenclature we've chosen to use for the IUI, for example, is that it's a washed specimen. It's ready for intrauterine insemination.
Right, turkey baster people, for those of you who don't know. Okay.
Yeah. So we've chosen to use that nomenclature because clinics all around, that's the nomenclature they use. So when they tell their patients to say, you're going to have an IUI treatment, go get an IUI vial.
Got it.
If they say go get a washed vial, we find that there's a lot more questions. What does washed mean?
Right.
Always happy to answer those questions.
Well, who doesn't want washed sperm? I mean, no one would be like, please give me the dirty stuff. I mean, come on. Right?
So you're absolutely, and so ART, ART means assisted reproductive technologies. And what we're saying there is that this is still a washed specimen, but the cell count in this specimen is a little bit lower than the standard, or what would be considered industry standard at 10 million per milliliter or 20 million per milliliter.
Right.
And in that case, we're saying there's less concentration here. You could use this for treatments like IVF or ICSI.
Right. And so what I've done before, if let's say someone really likes a donor, and let's say they only have ART vials, you can actually combine them together to do one IUI potentially even.
Yep, pellet them out and resuspend them, and there you go.
Right, exactly. So the other question that I have is, you mentioned washed versus unwashed. Can someone get any of these vials for home use?
Absolutely, yeah. And the only thing that we require for home use, if we're going to be delivering directly to your home and not to a clinic address, is require that a physician or licensed medical practitioner sign off on a release form to allow you to to receive the specimens to your home address.
Got it. So a licensed medical practitioner could be a nurse midwife, a nurse practitioner, a PA, your OBGYN, your primary care doctor. Just basically anyone who's saying, yes, you're medically, cleared to do this at home.
Absolutely, because with any pregnancy, even with the amount of screening that we do with any pregnancy, there's risk.
Right. And so when they do it at home, do you provide them a special kit in case they want to get higher up, like beyond the vagina? Or is that something, and I just said vagina, and did that make you uncomfortable? Because I know you're so used to sperm and penis talk. No, it's okay. You're not blushing quite yet, but you'll get used to me.
I'm sure there's more questions that might make me blush here in a minute.
There are. You just wait.
So no, we do not provide a catheter or a speculum for anything past the cervix. We do provide a needleless syringe for cervical insemination.
Got it. So you just leave that up to the medical professional. Makes total sense.
Yep.
And if someone does use it at home, what is the best vial for them to use?
Our statistics show that there's really almost no difference in using a washed or unwashed specimen for at-home insemination. It's slightly, and what I mean slightly is less than 0.5% towards unwashed. But what we see is that at-home inseminations have a very similar success rate to just traditional intercourse.
Okay.
It's about 1 in 5, 1 in 6.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. So that's what I quote my patients as well. And so you mentioned something about 10 million, 20 million. Is that close to what your guarantee is? And what does that mean when you say a sperm count guarantee?
Well, the thing that I always want to tell the clients is, it only takes one, right?
That is well, I tell them it takes one egg, but 40 million sperm, but that's okay.
That's for a later conversation. So the industry standard at this point in time all around the world is that the IUI specimens should have 10 million motile cells in total.
Okay.
And most IUI washed specimens are going to have 0.5 milliliters of volume.
Okay.
That's just what's normal for the catheter.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not. It's a very little volume. So what we then do is we set the concentration to 20 million per milliliter, and then thus in 0.5 milliliter of volume you get 10 million motile cells. That's what we are going to set as our standard, our guarantee for our standard IUI specimens.
Perfect.
And then for the unwashed specimens, since typically the only other use besides at-home insemination for unwashed specimens is for it to be sent to the clinic or to the lab for them to wash it. So the standard for that then is actually a little bit higher. There's going to be at least 15 million motile cells because they're going to try and wash it for other treatment use, and you want to make sure there's enough cells there still to use.
And then what are they washing when you're saying they're washing it? I mean, I know, but I'm just saying for my viewers, what are they washing? I want you to say it.
They're washing away seminal fluid. They're washing away, if they're using a density gradient, you can wash away things like dead cells, round cells, blood cells, and any other particulates.
So basically they're getting it sparkling clean before it goes into the uterus.
And there's that sparkling
There
sperm.
you go. And then the reason why it's 0.5 mils of volume is because the uterus is a muscle, and it's just not nice to push a large volume of fluid into someone's uterus because that can really hurt.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then you guys make sure that you use the right cleaning products. I mean, I know they're not cleaning products. I'm just being a smart aleck here.
Yeah, we use the natural organic method cleaner here. So
Yes. No, but seriously, that's a good question. I didn't even have it on my list. What kind of things do you guys use to clean or wash the sperm? What's the media that you use?
Yeah, so we use In Vitro Life, but what it is that the first step in the process, like I said, is to get the semen analysis, get the counts at the raw specimen,
Right.
and then at that point you begin adding things to it to wash it. And to wash it is putting it through a density gradient, which pulls just the motile sperm cells through like a matrix of other materials. And then it pellets down at the bottom, and after it pellets, you can then resuspend in what's called a wash media.
Got it.
And then at that point, the wash media's goal is to get rid of all the density gradient media that is still remaining after that separation, and then you dilute it down to the right concentrations.
And you lost me at matrix, but that's okay. So tell me about how you freeze it. I mean, you must have like tanks that are like, I don't know, taller than I am, and I'm pretty tall.
We have upgraded our storage system over time. When I first began here and I was working in the lab had 30 tanks. A year later, it had 100 tanks. I mean, you were walking on tanks, and they all look like, if you've seen the movie Alien, they look like the little pods that the aliens are in.
Right.
But, yes, we have these gigantic freezers that now hold 20,000 specimens, and it's...
And that's,
the freezing
that's
is
like a full-time job for lots of people to make sure that, everything's properly stored, labeled.
Yeah, we have 3 people alone just in cryologistics and distribution.
Wow. And then same thing with liquid nitrogen tanks. I bet you have a company that drops off liquid nitrogen in a big truck often.
Twice a week, 6 canisters each.
Right. And so, you hear about sadly, these awful natural disasters with hurricanes and fires. I mean, what would happen if there was some sort of natural disaster in Seattle what would happen to the sperm bank if something like that happened?
Yeah, one of the most brilliant things about liquid nitrogen and what the specimens are frozen in for long-term cryo storage is that if there was a major disaster, they're fireproof, they're waterproof, and they will hold that liquid nitrogen for about 18 days, 20 days without being at risk.
Oh, that's good to know. That's really good to know. And does the freezing process damage the sperm at all? Do those things could it potentially cause a birth defect or anything like that you know of?
No, because what can happen during the freezing process is that little ice spicules would form, and they would kill the sperm. And if the sperm is killed, it can't swim, it can't fertilize the egg.
Right.
So only those healthy sperm cells that have survived the washing, freezing, thawing process will make it to the egg.
Got it. Okay, so now for some questions that might embarrass you. So what happens when a guy checks in? Like, you told me a day in the life of Angelo, but I want to know a day in, not so much the day, but what happens at the appointment for one of your donors?
Sure. When they get here, they're checked in with a fingerprint scanner. It identifies them uniquely.
Okay, so kind of like my cell phone, so no one can get into my phone. There's a fingerprint thing. That's pretty cool.
Right, but there's no manual code either, unlike your phone. It has to be the fingerprint.
Okay.
That fingerprint then brings up their picture, their ID, their identifying information, and from there, they're
Is
given
it because
a cup.
someone might fake it, that they might say that they're that guy?
No, it's actually something that I created about 3 years ago. I wanted to have an assurance for our recipients that we take the chain of custody of the identity of the specimen very seriously.
Oh, that's so important. I mean, you hear of these crazy stories out there, so there's never going to be a crazy story with Seattle Sperm Bank in the news ever.
I sure as hell hope not.
No.
They get fingerprint scanned. It's a 5-step double verification process. At every time that the specimen changes vessels or changes containers, it's double verified by 2 employees. Nothing is you can't do any manual input of donor ID. It's all done by barcodes and computers and scanners. So
I bet you like Star Wars.
Can you see the picture behind me?
I was wondering. That kind of looked like a mess of dead sperm, but I didn't want to say anything.
That was actually gifted to me by a donor who knew that I love Star Wars, and it's a painting of some of my favorite villains from the Star Wars universe.
Oh, very nice. And I noticed that I think we're kind of twinsies here. I think you're wearing an Egg Whisperer shirt.
Hello.
I love it. Thank you so much for doing that. That's super fun. Okay, so we checked in. We're getting past the verification, and then what? They go to a room.
So after they're verified, they receive their specimen cup. Then they go to a donor room.
Did they ever come with a friend?
Or their mom.
Seriously?
Yep.
Oh, God, this is awesome. Okay, keep going.
So yeah, they go into the donor room, they provide the specimen, and then they walk to the lab, and we have a drop-off window at the lab. They leave their specimen there, and then they're out the door.
Okay, you skipped a step. What happens in the room?
The magic.
The magic.
So
Do you have materials? Is it live
Yes.
porn? Is it recorded porn?
So it's actually, we use Roku's, and it's streaming porn over a Roku device.
Okay, that's nice. No,
Yeah.
no VRbangers.com or anything like that?
I've had one PD bring it in, and it took him more than a half hour just to figure out how to hook it up to our Wi-Fi.
Got
It
it.
just didn't.
Yeah,
well.
that's really not worth it. Is there like a help button in the room if the guy's having trouble?
No. The reason why is because for the safety of our front desk staff, if they're having issues, we would require them to be fully clothed and come out and speak to us.
That does make sense. I want you to know these are not questions that I've come up with myself.
No, these
They
are good. I like it.
They really aren't, I swear. Let's see here. Have you ever had weird porn requests?
Yes.
Can you share?
Let me think of a weird one that I can share.
Okay.
Sure.
We'll wait as long as we need to.
18-year-olds requesting porn of 70-year-olds.
No.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying 70-year-olds aren't hot. Jane Fonda is hot. I'm telling you.
Yes.
She is hot. But, wow. That's something I need to think about that, or maybe I don't want to think about that right now.
And keep this in mind. That's the one that I could share.
I know, so I don't want to know what you can't share. Okay, let me go back to my questions because that was just awesome. Okay, so let's just talk more about the screening. You mentioned psych. Do you ever do a background check of your donors? That was a question someone asked me.
Since the beginning of time in 2008, since we opened the doors, we've always done criminal background checks, and we also do school transcript verifications.
Got it. Love it. I love it. So if someone said they went to this university, you're going to make sure that they're not committing fraud and they actually went there.
Yeah, and the big one is when they claim to be doctors, physicians, PhDs.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because of course people would want to, pad their CV so that they get picked so they can make $70 to $100 every 48 hours, right?
There you go.
And then CMV. I mean, what the heck is CMV?
I'm over it.
I know. I'm so over it. It's like getting the flu. I'm like, just don't worry about it. But you obviously can't say that because the FDA is watching.
Yeah, so cytomegalovirus is, by age 65, 80% of the population has been exposed to it, like chickenpox.
Right.
And the way that we look at it is, or the FDA just says, you have to have a policy regarding cytomegalovirus. Mm-hmm. Now, donors can test positive, as in they have an active infection. They can test positive, as in they've been exposed to it, or they can test negative, as in they've never been exposed to it.
And what's your process if they test, just to interrupt you real quick, what if they test positive as if they currently have an active infection, but they're like an awesome donor? No,
they're deferred until it's no longer active.
How long does it usually take, do you find?
Some guys, it can be a chronic thing, and it's actually kind of linked to chronic fatigue syndrome. So if they're IgM antibodies, which is indicative of an active infection, if it's chronically active, we just have to say, sorry, you can't be a donor because we can't prove you don't have it.
Oh, that makes sense. I'm so glad we learned that today. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we had we have to wait until they're fully seroconverted, meaning they no longer have the active infection with the IgM antibodies. And once they have just the IgG antibodies so that they don't get the virus or the infection again, then they can be actively donating.
Got it. And that's a pretty, sperm donation and sperm banks have been around for a really, really long time, but the CMV thing is more recent, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and it's because of the research that's been done and the findings that have been made about, if you and your partner, or the sperm donor, the egg donor, had an active CMV infection and the fetus got that infection, that can be dangerous to the fetus. But then there was some research that came out in the 90s and early 2000s about how they thought just being positive for the antibodies against the virus could cause an allergic or an immunoreaction because sperm is so rich in leukocytes. Well, the problem is that with donated sperm that's washed, there shouldn't be leukocytes. There shouldn't be an abundance of antibodies.
And then if you're doing IVF and you're picking out a single sperm cell and putting in, single sperm and putting into the egg, it's kind of a non-issue. Yeah. Okay, good. So how much does one vial of cost? I had a lot of fun joking around about the sperm donors and what they go through and how they can bring their mom to the bank to sign them in. But how much does actually one vial cost for someone like me who, let's say, wants a vial?
if you're going to be doing intrauterine insemination, the vial cost is $635.
Okay.
And shipping is dependent on your location. And so to California, for example, shipping from Seattle to California is $180.
Okay.
So for one vial and shipping, it's $815. And you know, our prices are very competitive to the other U.S. banks, if not lower.
Yeah, and you guys deal with a lot of sperm emergencies, I imagine. Frantic men and women calling from all over the world saying, I'm ovulating, I need my sperm. You probably deal with that a lot.
A lot, yeah. And I mean, here in the Seattle area, it's really nice. You know, we work with some local fertility clinics. I think you had one of the doctors over at
Yes,
PW.
last week we had Laura. We had Laura on previously and Julie on last week about how to pick the right egg.
Yep. And you know, in those instances, we can help them. We can get it over to to one of the Seattle area fertility clinics same day.
Right.
But if you're writing me or calling me and telling me I'm ovulating right now, I need sperm today, and you're in Alaska, it's not happening.
And you guys have a bike that looks like this sperm, and I imagine you guys riding the bike and couriering it to the fertility centers in Seattle.
The head of the sperm that you were just grabbing on the bike is actually a canister, and you can put a tank inside the head of the sperm and ride it and
really
deliver it.
I have a feeling you invented this too. Is that your design?
Nope. No comment.
No comment. Okay. Okay, so let's say we buy a vial, we get pregnant, and I want to use the same donor from before, and maybe their vials aren't available online. What are my options?
I'll tell you, the hardest conversation that I have to have with recipients is, sorry, the donor that you have a child with is no longer available.
Right. So if you get pregnant, you just go back and you buy more vials right away. Isn't that kind of, that's kind of what I recommend too.
We've got an article on our website about family planning, and we understand that there's financial restrictions to these types of situations, but if you are thinking about having more than one child, the best thing that you can do is to purchase as many specimens that are financially feasible for you and place them into long-term storage with us. Right.
And do you guys have a buyback program? So let's say someone buys 6 vials and they ended up just wanting 4 kids, because that's cool. Yeah. And then would you buy back the other 2 if they got pregnant with the first 4 and didn't need the other 2?
Yeah, absolutely. If the specimens are still here in our storage and they haven't left our facility, we'll buy them back at 75% of the original purchase price.
Excellent. Okay. And then does anyone, you just mentioned something that made me think, well, does anyone ship them, let's say, to Offsite Storage and then ship them back to you to buy back?
Unfortunately, because of the consignee relationship that's defined by the FDA, once I've distributed a specimen outside of my facility, I can't guarantee that what's in that sperm, even though it's highly unlikely, what's in that sperm container is what I shipped out. So the only thing I can do is if I do ship it out and they do want to send it back to us, we can store whatever they send back to us for them. But I could never buy it back, and I could never put it back into general inventory.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you guys handhold my patients so well and really help guide them about the donors. Like, who's the person there that patients should talk to if they just wanted a little bit more attention, a little more help trying to find the right donor? Who's their guy?
Oh man, it's a good question. I mean, I do all the audio interviews for the donors, so I know them really well. But I also oversee and manage our client service team, and that's going to be Candy, Katie, Abby, and Scarlett, and they're all terrific. And they know the donors very well, very well.
So basically, if someone calls up and says, I'm looking for this donor, I went to your website, can you help me sort through which of my top 6 I should really be looking at? Any one of those, any one of your employees would be able to help them.
Yeah, and we offer things like photo matching. We offer things like tell us what is most important to you and your donor, and we'll help you narrow that list from 50 down to 3 real quick.
Right. So photo matching would be like maybe providing a picture of I don't know, Luke Skywalker.
There you go. I got one today for David Beckham.
There you go.
It's like, David Beckham's not a sperm donor, honey. He's just not.
Okay.
So.
That's true. That's true. Okay. And I think that's kind of all my questions.
Great.
I am so, I had all these questions, and I hope I didn't embarrass you, and I really, really appreciate you just being ready for anything that I had to throw at you and all that good stuff. And I heard a rumor that you're also not just a general supervisor of Seattle Sperm Bank, but you're actually also a singer. Tell me about the group that you sing with.
I am, yeah. So I sing in a six-person a cappella group called Restless Vocal Band. We won the 2016 Northwest A cappella Championship. We've competed at nationals, and we do a lot of things like weddings, corporate events, charities. We love it.
Do you have, I don't want to put you on the spot and ask you to sing me a tune, but
boy.
I might have promised people in the teaser for tonight that I would get you to sing. How would you feel about that?
I can do it.
Okay,
I'll do it.
Go for it. Let's do it.
When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. Is that good?
No, I wanted more. That was beautiful. Yay! We usually have an applause track, but it wasn't working tonight. Imagine that you hear cheers. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay, well, Angelo, thank you. Have an awesome night. I really hope that we can get you on one more time in the future. I'll find some other topic related to sperm that we could talk about. Just any excuse that I have to call you up, get you here on my show, I'm going to go ahead and do that.
Absolutely, I'd love to.
Okay, thank you again, Angelo. Have a great night, and thank you for helping healthy families grow in the Bay Area and beyond.
Good night.
Good night.
Welcome to the Egg Whisperer Show, a program exclusively designed to promote reproductive health awareness and discuss fertility preservation options. Here is your host, the Harvard-educated fertility specialist, Dr. Amy.
She's known as the Egg Whisperer.
Fertility expert Dr. Amy Abazadeh.
And you have yet another success story.
Just launched by an East Bay fertility doctor.
Welcome to the Egg Whisperer Show, a program exclusively designed to promote reproductive health awareness and